I reckon that this thing here produces the best bush tucker I've ever had. He hasn't got a common name, so I can't give him to you. I refer to him as the Columbaroo Almond. He's tremendous. I'll just get some rocks and crack him open. No good. Rotten. Try again. These things are pretty hard to crack open. But they're really worthwhile if you can get into them. There we go. You see that little tiny almond there? Very, very small. But it is absolutely overpowering in taste. Tremendous stuff. One of my favourites. I reckon if you could cultivate these things up and put them in a packet and sell them in a shop, you do pretty well out of them. They're really good. As well as food and water, you've also got to have shelter to survive in the bush. In this part of the world, that's not a problem at all. Small caves and rocky overhangs litter the countryside and make perfect overnight camps. But if you think you're the first person to pick a spot, then you're probably a few thousand years too late. Look at that. That's not natural. That's been put there. All those grooves have been cut in there. Probably, I'd say, by this sharp-edged rock here. I'd work it up and down, establish the groove, and then use that groove to sharpen up spear points and things like that. It's an excellent rock surface for doing that sort of thing, because it's pure sandstone. Pretty interesting stuff. Hey, down here, what have we got? That's a baler shell. It's obviously been brought up from the coast and probably used for carrying water or something like that. Obviously the Aboriginals did the same trip and journey that I'm doing at the moment. It's had a bit of a break at one stage and they've fixed it up using beeswax or spinifex resin or something like that to stop it leaking. I'll leave him back here. This country's looking its best right at the moment, but the rains are over. And pretty soon, it'll start to dry right out. In a couple of months' time, you'll be hard-pressed to get a feed out of it. Even in the good times, you can't just go around picking tucker off any old bush or tree. You've got to know what you're doing. A lot of the plants are very poisonous and require careful treatment before you eat them. Get it wrong, and you'll end up as bush tucker for the ants. There's a little baby pandanus growing here. Little spiral-shaped fella. That's why they call him the screw palm. I guess one day he'll grow up to be like his mother here. But that's not really what I'm interested in. What I'm after is this vine you can see curling its way around the trunk and coming all the way down to the ground. Because it's about to die off. And that thing under the ground is what we call a yam. What I've got to do is clear this ground back because I can find the stem of the vine, and that's it there, running down into the ground there somewhere. So I'll clear all this back and then we'll start to dig him out. Okay. That tuber should be under there, probably about, maybe that far. I'm going to have to be very careful while I'm digging, because if I break it off, I could have trouble tracing the tuber under the deck. That's planted right in amongst the root system here. Ooh, there we go. Oh, that's a little one. That's probably one of the juveniles from around the area here. They're what you call a cheeky yam. It's pretty small, that one. I think we can do better than that. But they're what you call a cheeky yam. And what that means is that when you eat it without cooking it, it burns the inside of your mouth. So the only way to cook it is to roast it, or perhaps boil it the same you would a potato. All this yam digging and that sort of thing is regarded in Aboriginal society as basically women's work. I was out the bush one time with an old fella and we found a yam vine just like this. I said to him, hey, what about we dig this one up? And he said, no, rubbish tuck at that one. Women's work. And walked away. We might do better down here. Ooh. There we go. Stabbed him with a machete, broken in two now. Pretty of a dirty looking one too. There it is. You can see that bit of a potato looking thing there. That's what you cook up on the fire or boil it up in the pot and then eat him just like a potato. If I were to dig down there a bit further, I'd probably get half a dozen more of these. Just leave him there for a minute. Just over here, I saw a minute ago something which is rather interesting. Hasn't got that much fruit on him at the moment. In fact, there's one berry sitting there just on its lonesome. This is a thing we call dog's nut. And you can pick him off just like that and chew him up. Tastes a bit like apple strudel. But the really interesting thing about this plant is that it's one of the few examples that I know of where pioneers in Northern Australia actually use some of the local natural products. Oh, there's another berry there. I'll eat that too while I'm at it. Because this fella here is a bush medicine. And back in the days before they had cupboards full of aspirin and all that sort of thing, they'd dig up the roots of this fella here, boil it up, sip it, and that'd cure their coughs and colds and things. And I guess I've had 2 or 3, maybe a couple more old people in this part of the world tell me about this plant, white fellas. So it obviously worked. Well, they reckon it did anyway. I've never had to use it yet. Maybe one day. As you move deeper into the Kimberley, the sense of isolation grows. So few people have ever come here that the very solitude has preserved the whole area. These paintings over here, they're a painting style that's called the Wandjina, and they're very common right throughout the Kimberleys. After Gray had been moving through this country for about 3 months, he found himself at this cave here. And in his journal, which I've got here, he reproduced a lot of the paintings that he saw inside the cave, including that lot up there at the end wall there. Even when Gray was here, they were very old. And I guess today they're showing the signs of wear. They're starting to fade quite a lot. The knowledge that the Aboriginals once held about this land is also fading away. When grey came through here, small tribes were scattered across the country. Now it's virtually uninhabited, and many of the secrets of the bush are probably lost forever. After about 3 months battling his way across the country, Grey gave up and returned back to the coast. He'd travelled only about 60 miles as the crow flies from where he'd started. But it was the lessons learnt from those old explorers that, with the aids of modern technology and maps, have enabled me to do in days what took him months. Mind you, there are times when the absence of technology can be a real joy, particularly when I'm up here on the plateau and the crocodiles are still down below. Most of the creeks and the streams around this part of the plateau take you back to one place, the Gorge. And after all this walking through the bush, it's not until you come out here to King's Cascades on the Prince Regent River that the magnitude of the country really hits you. For me, it's nearly the end of the trip, but it's not going to be the last. There's so much to explore here, so much to find. I haven't even seen half of it yet. This is the real country of the Dreamtime, a place which is ruled by the sun and the wind and the rain, and certainly not by us. And it all makes you feel pretty insignificant.
Well, this is it. Almost to the very top of Prince Regent Gorge. And this is the spot where my mate with his helicopter is going to pick me up. I hope he is anyway. There's a little lure, barra lure, that I knocked up from a bit of driftwood way back on the coast at Careening Bay. I reckon while I'm waiting for him, I'll give it a try out and see if it works. Might catch myself a barramundi.